So first of all, not everyone drinks. I think it's safe to say most people over 21 and plenty of people under 21 have had the experience of their first time being drunk. Now that story is always funny, and I think it's because it's so relatable. So what I want to do is share the story of the first time I ever became intoxicated, other than when I was a toddler once, which is a completely different story. So this story begins at my alma mater, Penn State, and I was in the dorm of some friends, and to protect the innocents, we'll call these friends James and Barry. So James I knew from high school. I didn't have a lot in common with him, but he was pretty much the only person I knew on a 20,000 person campus. So I ended up spending a lot of time with him. Barry was a friend of his from a frat they were in together, so I got to know him through James. So anyway, one day they were celebrating in the dorms. I can't remember what it was, but they had a bottle of Absolute and some Smirnoff Ice. Now, I didn't make a secret of the fact that I had never had a drink before, and if you know anything about college frat boys, that immediately became the most exciting thing of their night, and they had a mission. So I played along with them. I grabbed my bottle of Smirnoff Ice, and I took some swigs while we were watching The Simpsons. Now, I can't really explain why, but at the time I had this really strange idea that I was a college athlete, despite not being on any collegiate or club level teams, and I had this strong conviction that I should never drink. Around the same time, I remember learning a trick that bartenders could use to politely accept drinks but not get wasted by the end of a night, where they might take a shot and then immediately follow that with a swig of beer, but what they were really doing was spitting that shot out into the beer. So no hurt feelings, but also not wasted. Come to think of it, I think that pearl of wisdom was from Coyote Ugly. So anyway, confident that I was the smartest person in the room, I took 2 bottles of Smirnoff and was essentially swishing one mouthful from one bottle to the other over and over. So James bought it. He was ecstatic. He loved every minute of it. And I was feeling pretty proud of myself, and then Barry pulled me out into the hallway of the dorm. Turns out Barry figured out what I was doing almost immediately. And when he pulled me outside, he said to me, "Maddie, if you don't want to drink, that's fine, but you don't have to waste our drinks." That ripped open my soul. Barry was a genuinely good guy. He was always good to me, and here I am lying to his face to save my own and wasting his perfectly good Smirnoff Ice. So I had some fierce cognitive dissonance on my hands. I wasn't the sort of person that drank, but I also wasn't the sort of person that lied to my friends and wasted their alcohol. So it was decision time. I decided I was going to down one for Barry, but I couldn't just down the one. I've been switching into 2, so 2 drinks were given. Then came the Absolute. So James poured some shots, and of course he poured one for me, and I thought to myself, why not? I'm 2 bottles in, what's one more? So I slammed down a shot. Now, if you've ever had a few drinks too many, you know that feeling you get the next day when you swear you're never going to drink again. Or that feeling that you get even weeks later when you get a whiff of alcohol and your stomach curls up into your throat with vengeance and anger. That's a good thing. That's a good feeling to have. And when you've never been drunk before, you don't have that defense mechanism. So after downing that shot, the first thing I said was also probably the first thing I thought, and the last thing I remember saying. What naive, young Matt Boland said was, "What's the big deal? It tastes like water." And then I grabbed the bottle and I started chugging. So I have a vague recollection of other people being there and laughing at the sight of me chugging the vodka. And I know James thought it was hilarious. And I also clearly remember Barry saying, "Hey Matt, you should probably slow down." But I had no idea what Barry was talking about. I had knocked down 2 bottles of Smirnoff and probably a third of the bottle of Absolute. And it felt like I was completely immune to the effects of alcohol. So about 10 or 15 minutes later, Barry stepped out into the hallway to go to the bathroom. I followed him out, and I remember I asked him what it felt like to be drunk because I didn't know if the alcohol was working. So what happened next was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Barry walked me through the stages of intoxication as I walked through the stages of intoxication. Barry described a warm feeling, and I suddenly felt warm. He said that your lips and your face would feel numb. My face became dead. Barry described time slowing down. I became a time traveler. So I only remember bits and pieces of the rest of the night. Taking a drink from the water fountain and comparing that to drinking from someone's asshole. going to the bathroom and being too dizzy to stand. At some point, I ended up in my own bed, in my own dorm, which was a 20-minute walk from the dorm I was in. And at one point, there's a fence that has to be scaled, and I have no idea how I pulled that off. So when I saw James and Barry the next day, they filled me in on all of the dark spots about how I was eating light bulbs from Christmas ornaments, how I was predicting natural disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis down to the day and time. But at the time, I didn't care because I was dead to the world. Which also rolls right into the story of the first time I met my roommate's parents while hungover, but that's a story for another time. So there comes a time in every friendship when that story gets shared, and I think for those of us that have lived through it, it's a real special story. There's something really important and valuable about it. If you got a good one, I'd love to hear it.